Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Those in Florida and the affected areas, hope you're okay. In terms of today's agenda, we don't have Andrew, but we've got some good information to share. Amanda's going to walk us through some product information, and Liran is going to show us Fortify 2.0. So that should be exciting and something that everyone should be taking advantage of. In terms of wins of the week, uh, we have now had managed SaaS alerts in place for over a little over a month now, and we're processing a lot of tickets and we're doing a lot of great things, and that's where a lot of wins are coming from right now. So I want to give the floor to Ben Jones for a little bit, just to talk about some of the things that he's seeing, some of the wins, some of the trends, and share your thoughts. Ben?
Sure. It's going to be kind of a short conversation. We have pretty much just been holding the line as far as incidents. It's a lot of the same things that we're used to seeing. It's malicious rules being created. It's sign-ins from high-risk countries. It's token use from devices that we've never seen before. So it's all those have been very effective, and we've been very busy. I think in the past 10 days, we've closed about 550 some tickets. So it's been interesting.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Let me ask you, when you're setting up folks on managed, are you leveraging Unify in all those situations?
Where we can, yes. If you have
Okay,
Unify, we would definitely take advantage of it. It's very helpful to know if someone's signing in from outside the country, if they're coming from a device that you're currently managing, rather than trying to have to track down every single sign in, especially the ones that you're expecting. So our goal is to not bring you something unless it's something we really need you to have to give us some input on, or just to let you know this is what happened.
got it. So the reason I asked you that question, it was a setup, is because I can tell you right now that only 36% of our partner base today leverages Unify on their own. So it's really important because it does so many great things. I would encourage you, if you're not on Unify and you have an RMM that is compatible with Unify, that you absolutely start taking advantage of.
Yep,
So,
100%.
um, Andy, question.
I do, and it was kind of an outgrowth of a conversation again with Adam. And I asked, and so with managed SaaS alerts, it'd be awesome with Unify if you were able to help us determine vulnerabilities from the user down to the device, saying, oh, this device is missing AV, EDR, whatever that may be, to link back and help us have an audit, because it is possible that someone deployed something incorrectly and the customer's more vulnerable. And what you've done with Microsoft and Fortify, could we do this with the MSP and the tools that we connect in to SaaS alerts?
Adam, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're a wealth of great ideas, Andy, and it always just comes down to priority and trying to do as much as we can with the resources I've got and affect the most partners. But definitely a good idea, like normal.
We've got other questions coming in too. Mr. McIntosh, yeah, I don't know if you know who your account manager is. We can help you with that if you don't, but definitely if you want more information on managed, that's where you're going to find it. And then let's see. So ConnectWise RMM, that is on the list right now in terms of support. Adam, you want to give an update on where we are with
Yeah.
ConnectWise RMM?
So I am anxiously, patiently, maybe both, waiting on ConnectWise to give us an actual instance of CW RMM so that we can do the magic that we do. I do have a friendly partner who has offered to let us into their environment. And right before the hurricane hit me, I was on my way to get that connected. So if by next week I don't have a sandbox directly from ConnectWise, I will probably be reaching out to that existing partner that started with us and use their platform to get the development going. So
Adam, I'm happy to let you into ours for anything you need.
that's good to know too, Gary. Thank you. So, really it's just a matter of one is really all I need. And then we'll get started. So, I mean, it could be as early as next week that documentation and designing the integration happens. And then, I'd love to have it done to like high five everybody at the ConnectWise event in November. That's kind of my internal plan right now. So we'll see what we get once we get into the product.
Many times, folks, it's, we're waiting on other providers to get us information that we need to do the actual connections. Once we have everything that we need, it actually, at this point, it does not take us very long to do. We've gotten the process down. We use App Wizard internally for that. So once we have everything from ConnectWise, we'll get going on that or get it out to you. Let's see. Adam, people want to know about VSA 10 support.
Yes. So VSA 10 is hot on my list. I definitely want to integrate with that one. I'm hearing more and more of our partners ask for it. The downside there is they do not have the endpoint available for us to ingest user activity in their platform. So as soon as Kaseya gives us that endpoint, I am excited to integrate to it. And in about 45 minutes, I have a call with the product manager over at Kaseya to talk about this exact thing. So hopefully he'll give me a timeline and I can share it with y'all when I get it.
Great. Let's see, this one might be for Liran. Microsoft 365 Endpoint Manager. Eric is asking about whether or not we can connect to that.
I'll have to talk to our Microsoft team over here before I can answer that question. Microsoft has hundreds, if not more, APIs. So before giving blanket statements on that, allow us to look into it.
Yeah. Okay. And specifically, Eric, are you talking about Intune on that, or what's the use case?
So instead of an RMM, we're trying to go to Endpoint Manager, Intune, and 365. So it'd be nice to be able to, because Endpoint Manager allows us to identify workstations. It's kind of the same thing that an RMM does. So it would be nice just.
So that is in my ballpark then, Jim.
Yeah.
That one also is one of my kind of skunk work projects on the side. I am very interested in getting any device that Microsoft will present to us, whether it is a managed device via Intune or just an enrolled device.
Right, enrolled device.
I would say 70% done with that. And again, this year would be really awesome. So it's high on my list.
Perfect. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, Eric. Okay. I think we got through all the questions. If I don't, yell at me and let me know. Okay. Anything else you want to share, Ben, before I move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Okay, Amanda, you want to share some product updates?
Yes, these are specific to Fortify, guys. So as you know, we will continue to add recommended actions and parameter support for additional recommended actions and a new parameters. So this is kind of the latest list. These are not released to production yet, but they are production candidates, so they will be released in the next few days. So we have added an auto remediate parameter for the action of disable exchange online. And so let me share my screen real quick and show you that one. so that everybody remembers what I'm talking about here. Can you guys see Fortify right now?
Yes.
So under your actions, this is specific to this disable exchange. I'd search for my action, I find it, and so this is parameter support. So again, it's your customize column. So you click edit customization, add a parameter, and this is the new parameter that we're supporting here. So automatically disable POP3 enabled mailboxes. And so you have the operator of equals to, and then your value for enable or disable. So this is something that's new here to better apply that recommended action.
How awesome. Can you put a date with this so that we have a date when that took effect?
Not currently, but I can certainly ask if that's something we can do. So that's the new parameter that we have supported. The rest that I have to bring you guys up to speed on are just a couple of recommended actions. So we have a new one for block downloads on unmanaged devices. And then we have a new one for require MFA for Intune device enrollments. And then we've kind of gone through and listened to some feedback around persistent browsers and or people that use non-interactive sign-ins only, which make it very hard to detect if an account is actually active or not. So there's a bundle of items. These are each individual recommended actions that you can turn on, but the idea is to kind of force a user to log in at X frequency so that we know that there's still an active user. So there's a new recommended action for never persistent browser session. Then there's another one for sign-in frequency control every time a risky user is identified. And then there's a sign-in frequency just in general. So you can make sure that people sign in at X frequency that you want. So once every 30 days, once every 60 days, whatever that frequency is.
Does this mean we could do this with Google and force a sign out of a Google Chrome browser
So
that might be stale?
Fortify is currently supported for Microsoft. So these are Microsoft items.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Amy, you want to add anything else? Or Amanda, excuse me, Amanda.
That's okay. No, Jim, that was the end of my list.
Okay. Is there anyone on this call right now not using Fortify? I would love to know. Because we have 65% or 67% right now of our partner base using it. It's like 99% of respond. But only about 67% on Fortify. Okay.
I don't think we've put enough time into it to do it correctly.
Got it.
Jim, if I may, we plan to enhance Fortify so that any conditional access policy you'll be able to set to report only. We know that sometimes people have some concerns when enabling Fortify actions. So with report only, it's not going to do anything. Microsoft will just tell you, hey, this cap would have fired, but we didn't actually do anything. So that's coming soon here as well.
Okay. How do people feel about that? Based on some of the comments, I think people are pretty excited about that one.
What I'm
really
most
good.
excited is MSA around all this, is that you guys have already got the expertise to implement all this stuff immediately for us. That's the part that I'm most excited about.
Cool. Thanks, Andy. Okay, yeah, a few folks definitely excited about that report only stuff, Liran. So with that, Liran, I think it's a good segue into sharing 2.0.
All right, give me a moment to get my screen share ready. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Fortify 2.0, and for those of you guys that have seen me do screen shares like this, I like to go through an initial kind of disclaimer that is, this is very much under active live construction. I was making changes to this today. I continuously shop for feedback from both our partner community And some of you on this call have already seen this before. I get feedback internally from our experts in order to give you guys the best possible product. And actually the report only Fortify enhancement kind of came out of this, where we just said, well, let's do that with our existing conditional access policies. That's an easy win. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So again, very much under construction here, still gathering feedback, still in the design phase. I know you guys are going to ask me for a timeline, and I'm just going to say 2025 at this point for when we can expect this, since we're still scoping it, designing it, and collecting feedback. So with Fortify 2.0, this kind of came to my attention because Ryan, of all people, who's in charge of sales here, early on, I think he wanted to make nice with me, and he's like, Liran, I'm not going to ask you for new features, like, ever, don't worry. I was like, oh, thank you, Ryan, I really appreciate that. But this is one that he did come. He didn't really ask for it. He just kind of said, we need to look at this. And I know that in his 2 or 3 years, he never said that. So when he said that, I paid very close attention to it. And we started researching it. And then very quickly, we realized this is very much the direction that we want to take Fortify 2.0. And so the 3 objectives for us here is, 1, to use an existing Microsoft tenant to create templates. And the thing that we're talking about here are conditional access policies, Intune policies, DLPs. These are the sorts of things. For this initial version, I will mainly focus on conditional access policies. The second thing that we want to do here is we want to be able to back up configurations and reinforce them later. And then thirdly, we want to compare existing Microsoft tenants against one of these benchmarks. On calls with various MSPs, I heard one refer to this concept as a golden tenant and have kind of taken that term, since I like that idea. And just so you guys know, we do plan to release an initial golden tenant template for you guys to start off with, and I'll show you that at the very, very end. To wrap up the disclaimer here, you're going to see things that repeat themselves. You're going to see things enumerated, and we do that for the design process, for the development process, so that when the team starts working on this, they can kind of see what things look like with all the buttons and all the switches turned on. So let's go and dive in. Enrique, you have a question?
Yes, really quick. So with other systems we use that have these type of capabilities, we've ran into glitches, or maybe just my lack of understanding. Because obviously when you're pulling in the golden image or golden policies in a tenant, they're linked to groups or users, which have that particular ID. And obviously when you push to a new tenant, that becomes an issue. One of the systems
Enrique,
allows you.
I'll show you that.
Okay, awesome.
We have thought about that, and I will show you what that looks like. And when I show it, if I don't, raise your hand again, okay? All right, thank you. So we're going to have a new tab in Fortify called Configuration Snapshots. This helpful tooltip will tell you these things allow you to import policies from a specified tenant in order to deploy those policies to other tenants. This text is just the initial cut. We're going to improve it. So then you'll see I have this empty table. I'm going to click import. When I click import, I'm going to see something like this, and it's going to say, select a Microsoft tenant to import. I'll click on my tenant, and then I'm going to say import. So on the left-hand side, I am going to have conditional access policies. Notice that I have Intune and DLPs disabled here. Again, for a design standpoint, we wanted to see what this looks like, but for now, it's going to be caps. So we have unselected policies on the left. And then to Enrique's point, the initial set of parameters that we're going to start off with are, and again, this is enumerated here like this in order to show the team, right? But this policy includes specific users, this one groups, this one directory roles, this one name locations, and this one authentication strengths. So when I select one of these and I bring it over here, I have the ability to click this customize button. And then when I select customize, what we decided to do in speaking with various MSPs is if you standardize group names, for instance, you have two groups, executives and sales, we will match those, right? So you can align and standardize group names on the Microsoft side of the house. And when you do this with Fortify, you're not going to have to go crazy with configurations. You'll simply go in and say group name is executives or sales, because to Enrique's point, if you have 100 Microsoft tenants, you have hundreds of potential unique group names that are happening across the board. So rather than deal with that, we've talked to several MSPs that told us, well, no, we actually standardize the group names. So the cleanest, most efficient way to handle that is to just say group name is an executives or sales. Directory roles are standardized. And when it comes to named locations, what we plan to do is take your list of named location values, such as unapproved countries in this case, and then clone that and bring it over to the other tenants. And then we have this link down here to show name location values if you wanted to see what that looks like. Right. So the idea is take the golden tenant caps, bring them over here, customize them however you wish. And then you could decide whether or not these are going to be report only or live. To start off with, we're going to default all these things to report only, so you can start deploying them and see how they're going to behave. Andy, you have a question?
I do. And that's around, is there a way for us at the end of this selected policy piece to say, hey, have I missed anything? And to have a snapshot that says these groups are not assigned or these roles are not assigned, and do you want to type of thing?
I think the idea, right, is that you have your golden tenant, and the golden tenant sets the bar for, let's say, for
I'm
whatever
saying for the
reason.
target tenant. So they might have groups that are different than the Golden Masters group. And how do I know I haven't missed one? Does that make sense?
It does. So it's going to be, I mean, you'll be able to override it, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But what we're doing here is, for the sake of efficiency, we're defining at the snapshot level the way that you want to handle these things, right? So let's say you've
Loud and clear.
decided, right? Executives and sales, for whatever reason, they're one of the two groups that we want to handle a little bit differently. And obviously the logic that I have here doesn't make any sense, but let's pretend it does make sense. Executives or sales are handled this way. What we heard as a best practice is standardized naming conventions on the Microsoft tenant side of the house. But let's say you have a brand new customer, you haven't done that yet, you'll be able to customize this however you wish. In terms of identifying, well, executives is actually named executives ABC on this other tenant over there, that's not something that we've done.
What I guess I'm asking is, if it wasn't like an attribute set to an associate names, what if I had a key group that I thought was assigned but wasn't? Is there any type of report or alert that could be presented that says you haven't assigned all these groups? Do you intend to? Is that intentional? Is what I'm getting at here. To see that something wasn't applied properly or missed.
I think it's an interesting idea, something that we're going to have to definitely think about in terms of how do we handle that type of situation. But I think for the most part, we're kind of relying on you to define what the group name is, to standardize the group naming conventions. And if you don't have that, the same way that you can do with Fortify today, you'll be able to customize this at the tenant level.
Okay.
Enrique?
So how about roles? Like the other systems, I criticize them in a good way, saying Microsoft gives you a template, block or request MFA for all admin users. Well, obviously they have 12 or 14 admin groups that Microsoft automatically puts in that conditional access policy. So that's a well-known practice. And when we push the golden policy to other tenants, it creates an issue because obviously that role in each tenant has a specific immutable ID or some type of UID on it that creates the problem, will you be able to handle roles also?
Yeah, so if you see here, directory role is global admin. And we actually have this in Fortify customization today. And the directory roles are standardized across all Microsoft tenants. So if you pick a global admin and you say today, I want to create a parameter where all global admins are doing this one thing, that can actually propagate to all tenants without issues. Where things get tricky is group names and name locations, right? So with group names, we've decided to allow you to type in whatever you want for the group name. And for name locations, we're going to take the name location from the golden tenant and then replicate that across your other tenants.
Type in freely, or will you be via API pulling in the group information for that tenant we're going to push out to?
When doing it at the policy level, then you have to type it in. And when doing customization at the organization level, you'll be able to pull it directly from the tenant.
Thank you.
I had one more question, Liran, and this is around sales and prospecting. And we have multiple golden masters so that we could say, let us evaluate your current policies for your cloud and tie it to what we know to be a known best practice, and then report back to them the shortcomings. And if it's applicable with exceptions, then we have a different golden master for that. Does that make sense?
It does, and we have that. I'll show you that a little bit later.
Awesome, thanks.
Right, so what we've done so far, right, is we've connected to a Microsoft tenant. We've selected the policies that we want. And because this is my golden tenant, I have standardized the naming conventions, executives or sales. Authentication strength is MFA, right? So we're gonna put that in, and then we're gonna set most of these things to report only, except for this one that I've decided to make live, again, for the sake of showing our team how to build this. So the next step for me is either update the snapshot or create the snapshot. When I do this, we're going to ask you, hey, you have a new snapshot, or you've updated the snapshot. You can either add it to a new template, enter template name, or add to an existing template. And now you can select the template that you want to add this to. I see that I have a question, Enrique.
Sorry about that. Will you be tracking changes?
Yes, I'll show you that too. All right, so now we have our template. I've added it to a new template, MSP Best Practice Gold. It's over here, Golden Tenant 1.02, created date. Thank you, Ben, for creating that for us. And you'll notice that in the template section, we now have this multi-tabbed approach. Recommended actions, snapshots. I have the list of all of my snapshots. They're versioned. And I'll show you guys what that looks like. I select this, I move it over. Now, if I want to, I can also add some recommended actions to this. So to Andy's point from before, this is what we believe is the way that all Microsoft tenants should be, or at least the gold tenants. This is the standard that we've set. We want all of these conditional access policies, plus we really believe in these two Microsoft recommended actions, including our new dynamic conditional access policy. That's here for you as well. So with the combination of this golden tenant plus these two recommended actions, that is the new standard for us. So I've gone ahead, I've defined this. Now I want to deploy it. So when deploying the template, again, same idea, recommended actions, configuration snapshots. This is telling us it's golden tenant 1.02. This is what is going to be there for you. And I talked about before that you can customize this. So I can filter this for a particular organization. I can pull up that organization, and let's say I know that org 1, for whatever reason, I can't have global admins in here. So I'm going to click edit, and then I'm going to remove directory roles global admin from this, right? So we take the configuration snapshot template. It's going to propagate to all of the organizations that you've selected, and then you can further modify and customize this so that it suits the tenant exactly the way that you want it. I can also decide, you know what, for this tenant, I know these guys, they're good guys. Let's make it live, not just report only. And then similarly down here, we have recommended actions. If you select this tab, you'll see the recommended actions. And today you can customize recommended actions, but we're also going to add the ability to accept a risk or do alternative mitigation for a particular recommended action that we have. So let's go back to what Andy said before, which is I want to benchmark this, right? This is my new benchmark. So today we basically benchmark against Microsoft's recommended actions. And the reason that we did that was over a year ago when we launched this. We wanted to have a very simple, straightforward story. We wanted to make this as simple as possible. And we felt that you could go to the bakery owner and say, Microsoft says that your score is 42%. That's not good. We can get you higher. That's what it looks like. Now with 2.0, you've defined MSP best practice gold. You have MSP best practice gold. You select that as your benchmark, and then we're going to measure that tenant against the benchmark that you've defined, right? So 25%, 25%, we can see there's something wrong with this one. This score went down from 25 to 10. We're also going to create an event to let you know when this occurs. And then if I click on this, we're going to show you the drift. So looking at the history, I can see that I applied the template name. Then I went into Microsoft. I added a policy. And then later on, I went and I removed the policy. So this is why I'm getting dinged on the score, right? Somebody went in on the Microsoft side of the house and made some changes. So we want to give you the ability to undo this change from right here in order to keep the tenant aligned. Andy, I'll get to your question. I just want to get through this. So the other component here is we have a list of all of the policies. So this is another way of looking at the Microsoft tenant and then saying, all right, let's make this live. Let's make this live. Let's set this to report only. Oh, and this is the one that drifted. What happened with this? Well, I know what happened with this. Somebody removed that policy or disabled it for some unknown reason. And then I can reapply it from here as well. Over here. All right, so this is a good stopping point. Andy, question?
Yeah, what happens if the client adds a license, or let's say they expand their licensing, and I'm just throwing Copilot out as an example, but if they added licensing and how do we know when there's a new deficiency that is developed because of an additional licensing capacity that the client has added to their tenant?
That's a good question. I think that what we would need to do is we need to develop one, either we update our golden tenant template that you guys use, or two, you would say, well, right, because the way that we handle that might not be the way that you want to handle that. So you might say, well, for anybody that's using Copilot, these are the mechanisms that we want to put in place in order to do that. So going back to another screenshot that I didn't share with you guys is you kind of have the ability to refresh the snapshot from Microsoft and create a new version. So let's say Copilot comes around, you've gone into your golden tenant, you've tested it, you've applied some new policies, and now you're ready to start pushing this out. You refresh this, we go back, we get the new policies from Microsoft. You end up on this screen, you're going to see the new policies here. You move those over to your snapshot, make sure that they're in report only, and then you can redeploy the template, and basically everybody would get those at that point.
Awesome, Liran. What I'm really asking is a SaaS alerts for a Fortify change based on a license that wasn't there last week, that's there this week. So you're basically hearing me ask the question, I might have someone who adds a license to a tenant and doesn't think through the process of how that would change their security posture, and becoming aware that they've added this licensing and now needs to be addressed as a SaaS alerts ticket through Fortify 2.0. That's really what my intent was my question.
Andy, are you mentioning, like, let's say they had an Entra P1 and they go to P2, so now they have risk conditional access based on risky behavior and things like that?
Enhancement or decline, they move backwards, or it could be they've added, Microsoft comes out with a new license that impacts security and we need to be aware of it. I'm basically saying if the licensing changes on the tenant and the Fortify detects that capability change, are we able to do that with Fortify?
So that's not something that is in scope for what you're seeing now. This is
Yes.
already
Okay.
right
Fair
months
enough.
worth of work. But what you're saying is certainly a really interesting idea where it's, hey, you just went up or you just went down. When you go up, you now need to worry about these things. And when you go down, you can't do these things anymore.
Right.
That's going to be something that we're definitely going to have to think through.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe
So
today you already monitor what type of license and what actions you can do in Fortify.
we do, yeah. Okay, so a couple of other quality of life enhancements is we have the data for the various security frameworks. So we're going to add a new column over here to show you the frameworks. So you'll be able to filter on those.
Oh, nice.
And if you want the ability to just say, hey, show me all the NIST 2.0 stuff, I'd have to check with Amanda and team, but I basically believe that at this point in time, we've gone through the Office 365 CIS controls, and the ones that are possible to automate, we have automated. But that's kind of our general policy with these things. CIS as a whole, right, has a whole bunch of procedural stuff that's like, make sure you lock the office. That's obviously not something that we can assist with. We can only focus on the Microsoft Office 365 controls that they recommend. And then furthermore, a lot of these controls, it's just impossible to automate because the APIs don't exist. But the idea again is hit this drop down, show me all the CIS stuff that you can do, and maybe I could build a template off of that. I see that Steve has a question.
Yeah, so I saw a lot of inclusions with the CA policies. How about exclusions, such as emergency accounts that I may want to have across all my policies, or even just specific customizations?
So that's a good question. In fact, when we built the Fortify customization feature specifically, we specifically, the use case that we were using in our design process was enforce MFA on all accounts except the break less. So that's something that you can do today. And this UI would allow you to do the same thing. So the operators that I'm using here are in and is, but you can actually exclude break glass, for instance, to make sure that you're not enforcing MFA on that one. So that's going to be part of this as well. The inclusion, the in and not in, if you will.
Okay, that's great. And then another question, which maybe is a little bit out of scope, but what I'm seeing here is that you're importing configurations from Entra and acting on it using the Fortify templates. Can we import information and then hand it over to respond? The case I'm thinking of is you have users that are traveling, right? And it's legitimate travel, but respond is creating alerts that it's violation because it's outside of the permitted location. So what if we're able to then either look at a conditional access policy that says, hey, this user is excluded because he's legit travel, or maybe just pull from a group and say traveling users and import, and then send that over to respond to mark that on a specific user, saying this user is now exempt from not just the United States and Canada, but also from Turkey, for example.
Is that how you handle it now? You do it on the Microsoft side, whether it's a special travel group or change up or customize the whitelisting location for that user?
Yeah, we have a travelers group or actually all our conditional access policies are not user driven, they're group driven. So anyone who's got to be included or excluded is going to be slapped in a group. And if he's traveling, we'll put him in the exclusion group of that CA policy.
So that's something that we've definitely thought about too. There's actually another really big epic that we call these things epics that is going to come after this one. Once we get this one going and it's well underway, we plan to switch to a new feature we call power filters. And in power filters, we actually have set the ability. I don't remember exactly the design, but I believe we've configured it so that you can go to Microsoft and get the rules, but you can also set the rules inside of SaaS alerts, and you use Turkey. Let's go with that, right? Steve is going on vacation in Turkey for the next 2 weeks. So let's add a temporary whitelisting rule for you for Turkey for 2 weeks. When that thing expires, it'll just default back to your original approved location. So we are thinking about that. And before we get that project underway, we will probably have a secondary review with power filters.
Yeah, that's cool. And what do you think that at that point that will be able to tie into respond to put in an exclusion or a whitelist on the respond user? Yeah.
Exactly, right? Because what triggers respond, right, is approved or unapproved location. And so if you go to a user, let's use you, and you set that new approved location rule for you, right? So starting today at midnight for the next 2 weeks, you're allowed to travel from Turkey and to be in Turkey. In fact, anything outside of Turkey is going to be outside approved location for you.
30 minutes.
Then
That's why we're asking.
that's no longer going to be outside approved location, which means the respond rule is not going to trigger. Furthermore, if you were going to be in a different country every single day for whatever reason, you could also go in there and configure it to do the exact same thing, right? Turkey and then Greece and then Estonia and whatever.
Beautiful. Thanks.
You're welcome. So just to get through this, just a few more. On the template side of the house, I mentioned at the beginning that we would give you a template, and Ben, congratulations. We're going to need a template for this. What a perfect time to tell you. We're going to need a golden tenant, right, that we're going to build in-house, and then you'll be able to go into the templates over here, and you'll be able to take our golden tenant, clone it, and use that as your starting point. We may have a contest for golden tenants from a conditional access policy to see what that looks like. But again, the idea here is clone this and use this as your starting point. And then last but not least, I've heard repeatedly from multiple MSPs that they love this report and the one I'm about to show after this. And it's because we designed these two reports to help you guys sell. And that's actually the way that these reports work in the field. So previously you would show the Microsoft recommended actions, but now you'll be able to compare this against the template that you've created. So you're going to be able to walk in and compare this against the conditional access policies from the golden tenant, and then whatever Fortify policies that you've decided to include as well, and then tell your prospect or customer, this is how you're doing against the way how we see the world. And then when you're doing your business review with them, rather than comparing them against scores that are defined by Microsoft, you'll be able to hit this drop down and compare them against benchmarks that you and your team have defined instead. All right. Do we have any questions or comments from anybody?
I love
Great.
Mr. McIntosh's comment. He's gone mad with power. Is there a respond rule for that? That's awesome.
I've gone mad with power.
No, Liran, this is great stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You need to let me know before I go on my shopping spree buying all these tools. What's coming out?
This is when we want to get close enough, right?
It's just a 36-year contract I signed. This is awesome, guys. Congratulations. Definitely very much needed. And it looks like you guys have it really down as to how it works and best practices. And without a doubt, once it's out, there'll probably be tweaks, but this is amazing.
So building on Eric's remark about tying this to a compliance, having Adam build a link to Compliance Manager or other tools would be helpful so that this could feed in.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
Do we have
Definitely.
any other questions or comments?
There's a question, and I know Ben probably answered it. So for people that are maybe wondering, I got a direct message on this about whitelisting down to the state level. We can't whitelist on the state level, but we can set up a respond rule to alert on state or city level activity.
Jim, that's
So-
going to be part of the power filters enhancement, but I want to caveat that to say state data is not necessarily accurate. So it's a double-edged
I know.
sword. Unless you're dealing with an IP that you kind of know is where it's supposed to be, it's not a government body. It's a bureaucracy, and then they're going to take weeks to update stuff. So if you're going to start doing state level rules, you could be getting some benefits, but also opening the world for some pain.
Yeah, I mentioned that the third-party database that we use for geo information isn't 100% accurate. So that's a caveat.
It's
But
about
today,
90% accurate, right? But when
Yeah.
you are dealing with 100,000 alerts, 10% is still a high volume.
right. So that's that. And to Ben's point, you can do that today with respond rules. If you want a session, just work, with your account manager, we'll get with the right resource to point in that direction. But definitely, if you can get the IP information from your clients, whether they're in the office or with their home offices, that's the ideal situation. So, okay. Any other questions for Liran? Okay, we have 6 minutes left, and with that, we have one more update from Adam. So first of all, Liran, that was awesome. And next up, we another good update in the way of Datto EDR.
Yeah,
I know there's a
like,
bunch
how
of
do you
you
even follow that? Like, I don't like,
I know.
maybe just got off stage and I'm rolling on with my cover band here. So, so Datto EDR integration is, I'm gonna say, probably 95% done. Let's see if I get my right share this time. Is this analyze screen? Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we're about 95% done. Thank you, Andy Rowe, for giving us access to your data. It helped me wrap up a few more things. So very soon, we will have the ability to alert in your production environments on Datto EDR. We are tracking both user activity within the product as well as alerts coming out of the product. So we are right now grabbing API keys being created, authentication success, security roles being modified, users created, as well as alerts being generated. Let me see if I can pull one of those up, as well as an alert here. So here's a Mimikatz alert that we picked up out of Datto EDR. So coming along nicely. Right now, the biggest thing I'm waiting on is for Datto EDR to provide me IP address information as part of their user activity. So right now, we're not receiving any IP from them. They have committed to getting that into their product this month, actually. And as soon as we get that data, then we will be going live with Datto EDR.
Great. Good stuff. Thanks, Adam.
Enrique.
Enrique, would you say beta testers for Datto EDR or for Fortify 2.0?
For everything, but for Datto EDR right now that you mentioned. So quick question, Adam, on the Datto EDR, going back to tying in the Microsoft Entra and identifying devices. Once, because obviously Datto EDR has the same name of the device as we have in Datto RMM.
Correct.
You're going to get the IP address hopefully here soon from JV and his team. Is there any useful information? I'm just talking out of the box, any useful information that can correlate all this and give us more
I don't know
enhancements?
yet. You know, I've been running under the assumption if you're running Datto EDR, you're probably running one of the other RMMs that I've already integrated to, and likely have device information that maybe is more complete. So I was kicking around actually bringing devices from Datto EDR into Unify, and it's absolutely something we could do. I don't know that there's value to that above the RMM data that we're already getting, unless you're running an RMM that we don't support. Then the Datto EDR devices may actually make sense, and we may move that direction if we find a need for that.
Now, are you just picking up because now they have within their same security component, they have Datto EDR and Datto AV and both Mac and Windows. Are you picking up also alerts from the AV portion?
Yes. Yes. So the threat that I showed, like on Mimikatz, was an actual alert generated via Datto for an infection on an endpoint.
Perfect. Congrats. It's just as big as Fortify 2.0.
No, it's not, but I appreciate it.
Okay, awesome. Well, look, the reason we share this stuff, right, is so you can provide feedback and give us our ideas, and we can incorporate some of these on a go-forward basis. So we appreciate, your feedback. We wouldn't be where we are today without this group of awesome MSPs. So thank you for that. With that, we're pretty much at the top of the hour. So hopefully we have Andrew back next week to explore additional topics. Until then, thanks everybody. Have a good one.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you guys. Bye.
Hi, guys.